Hello, welcome to my new channel. My name is Holger. I'm from Germany. I'm a person who likes to think about the world, and for this I use various methods I've learned over the years, starting with studying physics at some point in my life and earning an advanced degree in it, and then just following an interest in different ways to think, different methods of thinking, which I've always kept up in my life so far, and which I think has helped me to find some useful methods, which I want to share with you about how to look at the world and analyze things, and in the best case, even understand some things. Today, for the first video, I want to start with some basic thoughts on critical thinking, which is one of the main methods that I use. Um, and actually, some of those thoughts they can help with all kinds of thinking and analyzing the world. So I think the first thing to understand is that critical thinking is actually a method rather than a result. And that means you you use a method, and if you can call something critical thinking, depends on using this method and not on the result you arrive at. So it means you might arrive at some result which actually is pretty unsurprising or commonplace, just as well as you could arrive at a result which is very unusual. Um, it is important to be truthful to yourself in using this method, and even more, it's important to be aware of what is your goal. If you want to use critical thinking, your goal should be to be as little wrong as possible when matching what is testable in the world. So, critical thinking, and in extension, scientific thinking, is a way to try and reach this goal. For that, you also have to let go of your ego to a certain degree, because you need to have a posture where you expect to be wrong and you're actually happy if you can correct something you're wrong about. And this is often quite hard for us. Of course, you can also use those methods to analyze what other people say, but you should not try to exempt yourself from it and think that you're always right. Actually, since it's very hard to find the flaws in your own thinking, a discussion with someone else is a chance to have them test your thinking. So you should look at their arguments and use them to work on yourself, which is a very different way than what we're often used to do in discussions. But it is actually a good way to help improve your thinking in the long run. It means that you take a little bit out the emotion. In general, you should stay respectful to the other person. You should try to understand where they're coming from. And when you discuss with them, then discuss with their arguments and do not attack their person. And as I said, always consider if what they say is actually valid. And if it is valid, then let them change your opinion on some things. That doesn't mean that in any discussion in the end you accept what the other person says, because of course there's other basis for knowledge. There is also things you have thought through maybe, and as I said, critical thinking is a process. So if you use these methods to consider the arguments of someone else and you find them to be weak, then you don't have to take them on. And you can just stay with your own belief. What often also happens to me actually is that I adapt part of what I think, um, rather than, I'm doing like a 180-degree turn. That basically never happens. But often, even if you don't agree with someone, some of their arguments might actually point something interesting out, and you can, even without accepting their whole viewpoint, you can use it to see where, in what details do I need to adapt my thinking so far, or maybe even if in the end I don't agree with any of their arguments, still they are very helpful to point out where in a discussion, or where in my thinking I actually haven't thought things through as detailed as I thought, and I need to rethink them. And it might be that in the end I still don't agree with the opposite view in any way, but it still has helped me to improve my thinking in the long run. So that is one thing. Take a discussion always as a chance to improve yourself, and try to also help the other person to improve themselves, but also always try to stay polite. And I know this is very hard, and frankly, it doesn't always work. And you always have to take a step back, consider yourself, and realize, okay, I don't always live up to an ideal like this, but by always reminding yourself of it over time, you will get better at it. Um, or maybe you're a natural talent and you already are, but in my experience, there always is room to improve. Even if you're already quite good at something, there always is some details you can work on and improve yourself. So coming back to critical thinking in general, um, if you if you see arguments in a discussion or you read them somewhere, try to consider each argument for its own merit. What often happens is that you kind of get like a package of arguments, and then if you don't like one of them, then you throw all of them out. Um, but I think it's much more useful to take each argument for itself, and then you might find that some of them actually work, some don't, and only in the end um, try to see the accumulated arguments of of any viewpoint, be it opposite to you or not, and and then maybe draw an overall conclusion. But first of all, look at each argument by itself. That also leads to another point, which is that there very seldomly is black and white. Um, the world is usually more complicated than that, and that also means that someone might be wrong about one argument and right about another, and that includes yourself, of course. So also by looking at arguments independently, you're reflecting this complexity of the world, and it will give you a more complicated picture of things, but it will also give you a better picture of things. Um, Additionally, if you are if you have two opposing viewpoints, and only two viewpoints are presented, maybe take a moment to think about if there is more than two viewpoints, if there's nuances between the viewpoints. Also, if actually, if there's two sides, if actually their viewpoints are correctly represented, because often discussions are made about strawmans where each side claims the other believes something which they don't actually believe. So be very careful about this. Um, accept that most people have good intentions, and that very few people intentionally have bad arguments. Try to understand their argument and judge it. I will hopefully make more more videos about different ways to judge particular arguments over time. For now, I'll just keep it very general. So try to be open. If you are in an argument, be honest about them and their argument. Don't try to present something that they're not saying. On the other hand, try to understand their argument, to ask them if you understood it correctly, and if you see that there's maybe a stronger argument for what they're saying, present it to them, because the goal is not to win the argument. The goal is to have a better picture of reality. And yeah, I mean, if they have something, have an opinion which has a good argument for it, they're not aware of themselves, yeah, why not share it with them, even if you disagree with them? Because yeah, maybe there's other arguments which are strong on the other side, but but yeah, you don't want to just win the argument. You want to understand things, and so you need to understand strong arguments for both sides. Um, yeah, finally, realize that, as I already mentioned, the world is not simple. Um, realize that things are often complicated, and try to find the best way to describe things that fits what you can actually see. Um, it is sometimes maybe not so easy, um, but it will help you deal with a lot of things better by doing this. And another, finally, um, try to try to learn about things not just from one source. Don't just watch any video, even if it's from me. Try to look for other sources, see if you can find more than one source that presents certain arguments and facts. And in general, it's always a good point to see different sides of any argument. And what also is very useful, if you try to get basic knowledge in the fields that you think about and discuss about. So if you have a discussion about something scientific, try to have a basic idea of the science you're talking about. Read up on things like the scientific method, so that you have a strong base in in the basic ideas of the field of the discussion. Um, Also, admit to your weaknesses in knowledge. Admit that you only know something to a certain degree, and if you don't know something, then openly say it. Um, that doesn't mean you have to accept someone's argument from the other side just because of that. It is also fair to say that you're agnostic for this until you've heard more than one opinion on it, like checking different experts' opinions, or you have been able to read up on some basic principles. But don't claim that you know it if you don't have a base to know it. Then make it clear where's the limits of your knowledge. Make it clear where you have an intuition or an opinion but are not sure. Um, yeah, and then see where that leads you. So I hope this is useful for you. This is my first video, so it's probably a bit bouncy right now. I hope you learned something. Please feel free to like and share, and also feel free to give me feedback. Um, Something which makes me improve, because right now being new at this, there's still a lot of things I can improve. Um, and also, if you have something interesting you would like to hear my thoughts on, also feel free to contact me, and I will see if I'm able to say something interesting about it. So everyone, take care, and hope to see you soon.